today we are joined with Lorena. As you might know, the format is quite simple. I'll give it a bit of introduction and read out Lorena's bio, and then Lorena will do a bit of presentation on Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation and the program itself, Safe and Sound Cities. And then post that, we'll have a bit of dialogue and a Q&A from the floor, which I will assist with navigating the traffic, and then any other business and next session. And also just for admin purposes, please feel free to, there's only a small number of us, so if you've got any questions, just either raise your hand and I'll assist and alert Lorena know if she's on presentation mode. And also, you can also write the question in the chat. So either way is totally fine. So without any further ado, let me just introduce Lorena. Lorena Zemp is the Chief Operating Officer at the Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation, where she leads the coordination of all operational processes at GIB and leads one of its key strategic pillars as Director of Infrastructure and the Next Generation. Lorena is the Global Director of the Safe and Sound Cities program, driving efforts to create safer and more inclusive urban environments for youth, which we'll hear more about today. Lorena is an expert facilitator, program and grant manager, and has represented GIB at both local and international forums. With a strong background in standardization and social regulation, Lorena brings specialized expertise in labor standards. Prior to joining GIB, she worked with the International Labour Organization. Oh, I didn't know that, Lorena. That's fantastic. I believe there's a big office in Geneva. Were you there? Yeah, you were there. There you go. Down the road from my house in Servette. Lorena also has a solid foundation in business and finance, having held roles in corporate banking and impact investments in Canada, Mexico, and Switzerland. She's fluent in French, English, German, and Spanish, enabling her to work effectively across diverse cultures and linguistic contexts. Without further ado, please give a warm virtual welcome to Lorena. Hi. And Lorena, I pass the floor to you. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much, Sunny. Thank you everyone for being here, and totally understandable that some of you are finishing your lunch, breakfast, or any other snack food, so no worries. And I was super excited to join the Alliance. I think our organization, our program shares so many of its interests and objectives, and two, for Sunny to invite me today to share a little bit of what we do at GIB and our Safe and Sound Cities program. So I'll start with my presentation, and as Sunny said, if you have any questions at any point, please raise your hand and I am happy to stop. Otherwise, just note your questions and we can tackle them at the end. All right, so then I will share my screen, which we tested with Sunny 10 minutes before the call, so it should work. All right, cool, super. All right, so the Safe and Sound Cities program is a global program that we have at Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation. So first of all, I wanted to introduce our foundation for those of us for those of you that don't know it. So this is our team. This is a picture that we took from our offsite last year. We just actually had our new offsite last week, so we need to update that picture. But yes, so this is us. We are a multicultural team with over 20 different nationalities. We are right now 25 FTEs, and we have been around since 2008 with some changes. So we actually experienced exponential growth about 4 years ago, which was around the time that we got also the Safe and Sound Cities program and other programs at the same time. And we have been growing ever since. So this is all of us. You will see there in the red jacket standing at the back, that's our CEO, Louis, and I'm there crouching in that we're crouched at the front. So this is us, and I wanted to start the presentation with this because sometimes you hear about all of these foundations, these organizations, and you really don't know who are the people that are leading it, that are actually driving impact. And I can say, and I think if you talk to any of our colleagues, that we are a very impact-driven organization. Like we take on projects that we really believe in, that we think can make a difference, and we work towards making that difference. And one of the programs that do that is the Safe and Sound Cities that I will discuss in a moment. So this is us. This is our mission. We are called Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation. So everything that we do has a tie to the infrastructure sector. And we think about infrastructure not only in terms of physical infrastructure, like buildings and physical assets, but it's also the connections between those assets, like the transportation, communication networks. And we also tackle other sectors like water, nature-based solutions, and many others. But our vision is that um, the world that we live in will be a world in which all the investments, as you know, infrastructure is driven by financial investments, that all those investments that are in social, economic, and physical infrastructure lead to inclusive, sustainable, and resilient communities and ecosystems. And I think this is what differentiates us from other organizations that work in infrastructure, because we are working on it in order to bring out the impact of inclusive communities and ecosystems. So that is us, and we work in three main pillars, three main strategic pillars that all have to do with infrastructure. So we have one that is infrastructure and nature. This pillar is about nature-based solutions and how to integrate that in infrastructure projects for all communities to have more sustainable projects in their city. This we mainly work in Europe with the Horizon 2020 projects. We also have infrastructure quality and finance. Here we work with the big asset managers. We are with our partner Bloomberg in the States to actually label infrastructure projects as sustainable to drive those investments towards sustainable projects. And then we have the third pillar, which is a bit more socially inclined, which is infrastructure and the next generation. And this is the pillar that I lead at GIB. And this is really thinking that we have to think about the next generation. They are the ones that will benefit or not benefit from everything that we do at the moment. And they also have the power to change things. So we don't want to have infrastructure that will lock us in into unsustainable pathways, because it takes a lot to change if we build, for example, I don't know, a school or a building that it's unsustainable. It takes a lot to decommission and then build again. So we want to involve the next generation into building literally a new future for them and for everyone. And this is the pillar in which the Safe and Sound Cities program is nested. It is our flagship program. So what is the Safe and Sound Cities program? You may wonder. So I decided instead from starting from what it is and how it works, to show you the impact that we're having. I think that is a bit more interesting so that you see what has happened, like tangibly, and then we go into how did that happen. So I'll show you a couple of pictures in some of our cities. So this picture is from Ecuador. Actually, it's in Ecuador, I believe. Let me double check. I believe this is it's Cuenca in Ecuador, and this initiative was driven by young people. The before picture, you see how the space was unused. It was also quite unsafe for all the young people that were living next to it or that had to go through it to get to their school or to get to wherever they needed to go. And the same thing with the one at the bottom. So both of those areas were not unused, but they were really like no one cared about them. They were dirty. They were not really welcoming for anyone. So through our program, a group of young people got together and then transformed that area into what you see on the right, which now has been used more by community members. It like gangs are not using it anymore. Other young people feel safe traversing through it. So it was previously used for alcohol consumption and other antisocial behaviors. And now the perceived safety increase has been from 60 to 90% about among women, which is very interesting as well. So that is one example of one of our initiatives. This is also in Ecuador. Um, this is an initiative called Renovarte, which means to renovate art. It's a word game there. The same thing, like this staircase was, everyone was so afraid to go through it, but people had to go through it in order to get to the transportation. And it was also rehabilitated to what you see at the moment. Also, the city, besides our own investment into this, the city also invested approximately 60,000 francs, which is a lot for Ecuador, to maintain and keep maintaining this space. So those two were in Latin America, and particularly in Ecuador. This one is in the Philippines. This one is in Baguio. It's called the Happy Paws Pet Park. It was also an initiative driven by young people that there were a lot of stray dogs or people that had pets, they didn't know where to go. And there was this park that wasn't used. And they rehabilitated it together with a lot of actors, and now it's functioning. It has already actually been taken by another entity, so they have invested in it to keep it alive after a program. So that is really good. That's in the Philippines. And this one is in Indonesia. This one was one of our first initiatives ever. It was an underpass. It was an area in an underpass of a bridge that was really abandoned. No one used it except the gangs. They were there. They were doing a lot of trouble there, and then they rehabilitated this underpass to actually be a community area for young people. They host a lot of events for children as well. You can see them there. What you see in the background is also they have sort of like a movie screening every Saturday and so on, and it's still ongoing. This happened like more than 3 years ago, I believe, and it's still ongoing. So those are the things that the program has as impact, like as tangible, um, let's say, changes. We have a bunch of others that are not as like as physical, let's say, and others that are very similar. But I picked these examples because I think they're really, really meaningful as well, and they're in different countries. The final one that I want to show is also in Ecuador. It's called a river library. This is an area that was next to a river in which, like again, like no one wanted to go because it was very scary, and then it was rehabilitated into a moving library. With right now has around 600 daily users. It's a space for children and parents and young people to come together and learn. So it was another one. This most recent. This happened about 2 years ago, so it's still ongoing. Yeah, so these are the initiatives that are the result of the implementation of our program in different cities. Um, so where are we? Our program, even though we are the program managers in Basel, so GIB is the program manager, we are an on-granting organization for this particular program. And we have a network of partners that implement in different cities. We are in Latin America, in Colombia, in Ecuador. In Ecuador, we have 2 cities. In Colombia, we have also two cities, Envigado and Cartagena. We are also in the Philippines, in Baguio and Naga. We're in Indonesia, in Bandung. And the other ones that you see in yellow, those ones are part of our network, but we haven't yet implemented there. We are in the second phase of the program, and the first phase was 3 years, and the second phase is envisioned to be 5 years. And we have just started, we started at the end of last year, the second phase. So we hope that by the end of this program, we have around 9 to 10 cities, but also depends on co-funding secured. The city that is not reflected here that I'm very excited about is Switzerland. This program was actually envisioned to just be in secondary cities in developing countries. But we found other donors, different from the donor that supported this particular program at the beginning, that were interested to implement in Switzerland. So we are bringing S²Cities to Switzerland with a focus on the LGBTIQ youth. And that program started in May this year. So who are these people and these organizations that implement this program? So as I said, we have GIB, we are the global program manager, but the institution or the foundation that is funding us is Fondation Bodnar. They are also based in Switzerland. I think like many of you know them, and they give us the funding. So they allocate us all the funding, and then some of that funding we keep for our own functioning. And then most of that we pass through. So it's pass through funds and grants to other service providers, to our partners on the ground in each city, and to the young people themselves as seed funding for implementing those initiatives that you have seen. So this is a very nice graphic that our partner City Collab, which is our communications partner in India, prepared for us. We also have at the global, they provide communications for everyone, for all partners. We also have University of EAFIT, who is the monitoring, evaluation, and learning partner. They are based in Colombia. And we have a very interesting theory of change and how we collect impact. I won't go into it, but if you're interested, ask me about it in the FAQ. And then we also have a partner that helps us administer the funds, which is in Geneva, actually, and they are called Swiss Philanthropy Foundation. So it's them that do the due diligence on the partners and to send the money. I won't go into detail like on how we all function, but it's interesting to see here that we do have implementing partners per city, and we also aim to involve young people at all levels. So they are very much involved at the local level in also in planning and organizing, not only attending like the different events or things that they have to do, but we also have started on phase 2 to involve them at the strategic level with strategic task forces. We started with communications, with Mel. We hope to have them in research and in grant making as well. The age range of the young people that we interact with is usually between 15 and 24, but that doesn't mean that the benefits of it are only targeted to this age range. They benefit younger people, children as well, and olders with the community impacts. So with that, what is really S²Cities? Like what do we do? So whenever we implement in a city, we implement our methodology. So S²Cities is also methodology that we came up with in GIB, and it's a methodology to involve young people and the key stakeholders in a city to bring about change. So it's really about systems change. Like we have a very strong theory of change that tackles all the, I think, our 7 to 8 dimensions of systems change. And we have done it very thoughtfully and have enriched this methodology with our partners as well. What we do in each city is first we understand the city, we understand its system, like how does it work, where are the power and decision makers, where are the power holders, how is the dynamic between young people and the decision makers. We do a stakeholder mapping, we understand what are the key safety issues that young people experience there. And then we build capacities of all those stakeholders, so not only young people, but all of them in different workshops and different formats. We, after bringing them together and all of the young people together with key stakeholders, particularly the government, because the government holds the keys to infrastructure design, operate, and implementation, and to policy making as well in many of the cities. After we sort of like bring them together, we ask them, both of them, young people and the government, to define what are the key safety issues in your city. And once they have defined those, which might be very different from what the government had as priority, they together do this step 3, which is innovation through hackathons, through ideathons or other methods, they design initiatives or innovations that will solve those safety issues they identified. Afterwards, that idea gets implemented, and sometimes it results into what you have seen in the pictures before. It results into a space, into an infrastructure. It might result into an app, into a process, into events for advocacy. And then scaling systems is something that GIB does with our learning network of partners, where we bring everyone together. We do global convenings to continue catalyzing change. So that is our methodology. These are just a few numbers. These were last updated, I believe, at the end of last year. So we have 6 cities of implementation, more than 16 global learning network cities. So this is in our network that we might engage later, but we also do other events with them. We have 20 partners. We've had more than 500 of our partners and other attendees attending our global convenings that we do twice a year, every 2 years. We also had young people speaking at WOOF. There were 14. We were the largest youth delegation among all Fundación Botnar's programs there. We also, in every of our cities, we have a youth hub, which is a physical space that the government, the private sector, and us, GIB, we put funding towards so that young people can have a safe space to innovate and to prepare innovations for this program. We've had investment apart from our investment that we do give for the implementation of the initiatives, we've had private sector and public sector that have given in-kind contribution or like money, like liquid money for these innovations or other aspects of the program to the young people themselves. They don't give it to GIB. And we have right now 28 youth initiatives, similar to the 5 that I presented at the beginning. We have currently 28. These are other indicators. So more than 1,000 young people empowered. This is the number that we get through surveys and other means from our monitoring and evaluation and learning partner. More than 8,000 young people involved in program activities. 28 youth-led initiatives. And I think this is interesting as well, the numbers below. More than 90% of young people identified as feeling empowered, like more empowered after the program, which is really great because this is what we want. We want young people to feel empowered and to change their realities. And a 50% of them really actively want to continue taking part in decision making in their cities. Which is very interesting because in different cities, the way that they interact with the public sector is very different. Sometimes there is a lot of mistrust, and this program has given them the ability and the confidence to do that. So this is some of our resources that we have. Most of it's open source and available for everyone. Like you can download it, you can have a look at it. Most of our partners have local Instagrams and all other social media. Also, our young people's initiatives, they have their own social media channels, and you can see them here. Happy to send them after this presentation. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorena. That was really good. Brief and to the point and fantastic. I've seen you guys in action along with your partners and cohorts at WOOF twice, Abu Dhabi and Cairo. All were really cool, really galvanized youth, and they certainly, I'm not surprised by the amount of participation they've done. They seem to be very much energized. Emily, you had a question on the chat about the monitoring evaluation, and I understand Lorena went a little bit more details in terms of the indicators, but is there anything else specific you'd like to ask?
No, I went a bit early on my question. You then went and covered it. I mean, I was quite interested in your impact measurement, and a lot of your impact measurements were around the young people, which were really impressive. I just wondered whether there's a couple of things, whether there's any impact measurements around the community's response to the infrastructure changes, and also whether you've had a chance to any long-term looking back at how whether young people have stayed involved and how that's worked in the longer term.
Good question.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, love to talk about Mel. I mean, we could like talk for hours about Mel, but to answer your question, we do have some metrics about community response, particularly actually on most of the initiatives, because they need to get the buy-in from the community. Otherwise, the initiative wouldn't happen, even if they had the buy-in from the public sector. And sometimes they don't have the buy-in from the public sector. And once they get the buy-in from the community, then the public sector has to react. So we do have some measurements that I would be happy to share bilaterally or with everyone. They are in our annual report, so I would have to dig them out. But I know that like they are participating, like most of the participants that use the space are from the community, like the adjacent community, like in that underpass in Indonesia. Most of it, the visitors and the ones that are in are from the community. They like sort of lobbied for the underpass to be refurbished because it also benefited them. And also it's very interesting, that example, because also from the gangs themselves, they used to meet there. Like they had to be brought in to accept that the community and the space, like that the space was transformed according to what the young people and the community demanded. So we do have some information there, happy to share after this. And then for the second one, for the long term of participation of young people, now that we have phase 2, so we have a lot of data that we can use to then collect now and look back and see how long were the young people, how long did they stay with the program? They can stay in different ways. So I'll tell you a few. So they can stay in their initiatives. Either they lead them, or they get hired as consultants, or they are just advisors, or they get actually like money and they implement themselves leading. So that's what happened in the one in Indonesia, for example. They are leading, they get the money, they disperse the money. In other ones, they get just involved as consultants, like the one in for the Pets Park, and the initiative gets handed to another entity and they are just consulting that. Or they can stay in the program without being in the initiatives, but they stay as mentors and as coaches for younger participants.
Is it
That was
sorry, Emily, go ahead.
so no, so I was going to say that was great. And in terms of the metrics, it wasn't the specific. Sorry, I muted myself. It wasn't the numbers so much as the process of collecting that data. So I'll have a dig through your annual reports and have a look at that. That'll be really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, super happy to share it. Yes.
Okay.
I'm also impressed with the indicator you had in terms of being able to obtain, was it 325K in their in-kind support directly to the program or indirectly directly to the partners itself. You mentioned that some of those came from public and private funds. Can you give a couple of examples for me?
Yeah. So for the let me get that number. So for the one of the ones in Ecuador, the initiatives that I showed, the government invested 60,000, almost 60,000 francs to be able to keep that space, to maintain it, and to make it happen. Like because of all like the material that they need, our seed funding, it was not enough, so they needed, and they gave liquid money. So it wasn't in kind; it was liquid money that they gave. For others, for example, the one in Bandung in Indonesia, it happened in very different ways. Some private sector gave the materials, or all the contractors, like the cement, the wood, the work of the people to actually build it. They also gave in-kind support.
Oh, that's great. I think we've also had a few of those in a few of our implementations for partners with CHI, whether it's in kind, whether it's labor costs, whether it's assisting with procurement, whether it's just providing space, or a liaison with the private sector. Those all come in handy, doesn't it?
I think it builds also rapport between everyone, and then just a sense of co-ownership. So even if they give a little bit of in kind, like just the paint, it like makes them co-owners of that space and that initiative. Yes.
I'm also wondering, Lorena, I mean, I see your theory of change. I believe it was just understanding the system and then building capacity, catalyzing the innovation, and you mentioned about hackathons. Can you give an example where you've done that, perhaps in one of your phase one cities?
Like all of the steps, you mean?
No, just like a hackathon that you did in terms of catalyzing
Yes.
innovation. I know we did one for another program as well with Botnar, with Botnar Child World Safety Challenge, which I was happy to manage with GRSB. But we meaning my new ship with FIF Foundation, I don't think we've done that with a few of our partners here, and whether that's beneficial. How do you see it to be playing out in your program?
Yeah, I love that question because when we started the program, we had like this methodology, and we said, okay, like it will be a hackathon, like a 3-day event in when everyone, like stakeholders, private sector, public sector, and young people come, they innovate towards safety challenges through workshops and capacity building, and then out comes the initiative. And that was the original idea. But then when we implemented it, and because our program is it's very participatory. I forgot to mention that, but it's truly participatory. So when we started implementing that, and I'll give you the example in our first phase one cities, which is Envigado and Bandung in Indonesia. So Envigado in Colombia and Bandung in Indonesia. Like both of them have such different ways of how they saw a hackathon taking place. In Envigado, they created smaller cohorts of young people that had, I think, 3 rounds of innovation. So they had workshops, capacity building workshops on theory about placemaking, about safety with private sector and with some of the experts that we gave. Then they went to pitch those ideas to the public sector. Then after that, they sort of like massage and improve the idea. And then afterwards, there came out some innovations from each cohort. So at the end, they had, I can't remember, but like 15 innovations. Whereas in Bandung in Indonesia, it was a much larger event. It was, in fact, like a 3-day event, but they had a very long capacity building and research part in which they involved more than 1,000 young people in doing surveys and like getting in touch with private sector, public sector. Then they had their hackathon, which was about 3 days to a week of innovation, and out came proposals of initiatives, and then the initiatives were selected.
Was that with WRI Indonesia and Kota Kita?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's fantastic. And as the outputs from those were a few of the ideas from the hackathon funded as well from
Yes.
from a few of the private sector. That's great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I could even go on and on about the hackathon. That's fantastic. It's a great tool, and we did that with a few of our grantees in Rohtak with WRI India, and that was super useful. And some of them got linked up to the likes of Microsoft and IBM. They won a bit of the prize money for us, but it catalyzed into some other things, which were even able to employ some of the young people into NGOs, right? Which is fantastic. Tom, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny. Thanks,
You
Lorena.
finished your
Really,
lunch.
really,
That's good.
really interesting. I've finished my lunch. Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if you've got any data from the work that you've done, like improving public safety in those like squares and the parks. So just a little bit of background. We Amend, the organisation I work for, our focus is road safety, but we're working on a project with the World Bank in Tanzania at the moment, and we're doing studies around road safety, but at the same time we're collecting data around personal security issues, especially for girls walking to school. And so we're thinking about, what kind of recommendations might come out of that. And I hadn't really considered this idea of physical infrastructure improvement to improve infrastructure safety, other than to improve personal safety, other than maybe lighting. So to know a little bit more about what you've done in Ecuador and other places, and if there's any data that shows that attacks on girls have decreased, that would be really interesting for us to put forward in our recommendations.
And before you answer that, Lorena, I know we've got a few people here in the crowd as well, and use this as a brain trust. I can think of other NGOs that have been working in this space, similar partners that Botnar engaged, like Safety Pin. Raquel, I know you're here in the house, probably worked with them. AIPF has also worked around this space, around gender equity and also working with young people and women towards safer mobility. I think we did one for Thai Nguyen, for example, Hong. So feel free to chime in as well, not just Lorena. Thank you.
Sure, I can start and then everyone can, pitch in. So for the question of whether we have like a larger sample of data around the infrastructure, I am not entirely sure because I know that we collected data for sure on the young people that were like the core group that participated in the program, and also those that were adjacent to the program that they participated on surveys, the public sector and the private sector. I am unsure whether we would have collected for all the community. I know that, for example, for those initiatives that hosted events, like the one in Baguio in the underpass, and some in Ecuador, the one on the river, they interview the visitors, and then they had interviewed previously. They made a round of interviews and surveys when the space was as it was but like maybe I don't know 300 people or whomever was passing through it, like how did they feel, and then they compare that to now asking the visitors, but it's not really one-to-one because it's not the same person. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not, because they're asking the visitors. But like for those that are constant, like the young people that participated, that were the young people that used the space before and after, those they have, yes, we do have data for those, and they do state an increased feeling of safety. So that is what we collect in terms of like less attacks on women and like this more like overarching ones. I would have to double check them. I don't think we have done it, but it's a great idea to do. Maybe Sani opening up for like others that would like to jump in on that
Yeah, for
answer.
sure. If anyone's got opinions, this is exactly what the COP is about. Just about commenting on those work and assisting where you've got the experience. Anyone else? Silence. Eduardo mentioned on the chat there's a growing movement around crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED, which can be helpful to look into their recommendation. Yes, that's really good.
Yes, I'll note that down because we do collect data on like the perceived feeling of safety and all of that, but not using this, I think, this other metrics.
But yeah, Tom, you mentioned about, obviously there's lighting, right? But there's what other indicators do you think would be good to sort of remediate, placemaking that's safer for young girls? That's the question.
So I just, from what I see from what Lorena presented, just making a space more attractive, draws another type of group of people to it. So rather than people sitting around drinking alcohol late at night, you'd have maybe families that would come in, and so it looks great. And I like Eduardo's comment. I'll definitely be looking at that CPTED.
Eduardo, come in if you want to say something as well.
I was just going to add too that I think like in our experience with the Streets for Kids program, when we're thinking about the needs and experiences of kids and caregivers who are mostly women, is that exactly. I think it resonates with what you were just saying, Tom. I think when we make the spaces that are more attractive to these groups, we've seen a big increase in just like the number of women who start spending time in these spaces because they know that space was created for them. They feel safe. I think there's the whole thing of like eyes on the street, right? That just makes people more comfortable walking around or spending time in a space when they see more women. And I think it's about designing spaces that reflect their needs. Maybe, I know maybe you're thinking about the routes and maybe there's not a lot of opportunities to think, what that would look like. But if there are, spaces for permanence, more the public spaces where people might be lingering or spending time outside of schools, or if there are some opportunities for activation, maybe if they are yeah, spaces where women can get together, and then I don't know, girls will feel more welcome in these spaces rather than just spaces that are catered to men and other groups. But we recently heard from a group in Daule in Ecuador who was a part of our leadership accelerator that actually had done an intervention outside of a school, and one of the goals was around public safety. I can connect you to them if you want to, and maybe they have like an interesting case study to share. I don't remember the exact metrics that they were looking at, but I remember that it was quite unique in comparison to the other types of evaluations and that we've seen around, and how they were able to assess that. So yeah, I can make that connection later on.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, Lorena, you mentioned before as well about GIB joining CHI, and this is sort of like the benefit from your point of view, where we can sort of compare programs with each other. And just so for everyone's information, we have also updated our partners page. Let me just share that. On Child Health Initiative website, if you can see that. And we've got a few new people joining us. So feel free to have a look, and you will see that on our partners page that the likes of GIB, but then also Bike Bus and others have joined. So yeah, and there's also a few new news as well. While I got you in this virtual room on our initiatives currently on our original implementation, specifically in Cambodia and others. So please have a look with that. Another thing that's really interesting, Lorena, I noticed, I know you're more specific to safe and sound cities, but the other initiative that GIB leads and which is collaborating with us as well is on fast infra and your work there. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe I think it'll be of interest to some of the NGOs in the room.
Sure. So we also, another one of our pillars has to do with the financing of global infrastructure. And in order for us to channel investments to sustainable infrastructure projects, we work, and we are the secretariat of a label. It's a label that awards sustainable infrastructure projects, a sort of seal that says, okay, this infrastructure project has been done according to this standard, so it's sustainable and resilient. Investors, please have a look and invest in this project. We have extensive experience on labels and standards. We created our own label years ago, and then that label served as the precursor for the fast infra label. We are working on this label together with Bloomberg. They hold the data that we get from infrastructure projects as a repository. And we also have been working on this label like with all our stakeholders. They are the big asset managers. So we have people from HSBC, the World Bank, BlackRock, Meridian, and like many others. So it's interesting because it ties to like a lot of the things that are in that label have to do with making an infrastructure project child-friendly, gender-friendly, not only for women, but for like all genders, and also like other things. But it is a label that I think encompasses everything that we're looking for in an infrastructure project. So yeah, I won't say more, but I can share more info if any is interested.
Yep, that'd be great. And we've had a workshop here in London with your team, and also the ecosystem such as Meridian and Bloomberg. Not to confuse with Bloomberg Philanthropy, by the way. This is actual Bloomberg, and that's really cool how we're trying to sort of convert safer and sustainable projects into asset class, so that the private equity firms, and pension funds and the like are able to invest in those. So that's currently one of the work that we're doing. And maybe one more question for me. I'm sort of hogging a little bit, but in your phase 2, what's what's the next steps in terms of other cities? I think you got the impressive map here that I'm re-looking again with the Global Learning Network. What in the next 6 months, what excites you, Lorena, in terms of your phase two?
My God, so much. I'm super excited of phase two. But yeah, so in terms of cities, so there is a whole logic behind which cities do we take, where do we implement, and sometimes we want to make sort of like local hubs because in one country, maybe having multiple cities is more important. So we decided to start already as a new city in Colombia with Cartagena. They are just they just onboarded in May. We just had a mission. Well, I didn't go, but others. So Cartagena in Colombia, and now we want to go to some cities in Africa. So we are looking. We also have to match those from Fundación Podnars, their interest countries. So we're looking at Ghana and Tanzania, and we would love to implement in both because we found some synergies.
Right.
So that's coming, but we are open also for more ideas.
Fantastic. And I'm sure we would all be happy to collaborate if you need also a little bit of alignment, right, in terms of where we're working. And I know GDCI, Amen,
Yeah.
and the likes all have their hot spots. So happy to help you with that. We're still trying to develop a bit more of our mapping on CHI. It's proven to be quite difficult because the amount of volume and girth that all of our partners are working at. But we can certainly
Yeah.
give you some feedback on that too. Raquel, you have your hands up, please.
Yes. Thank you, Sani, for putting together this important space. And thank you, Lorena, for all your insights. You mentioned, Lorena, a sort of process that you followed to involve and engage youth in planning their cities, from mapping needs to capacity development and innovation through these like hackathons. At yours, or Youth for Road Safety, if you are not familiar, we have a similar process that we handled through the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. However, there is one element that we are focused right now on improving, and is the sustainability of those ideas and to the extent of becoming part of the actual government investment plans and the initiative. So I was meant to ask, what has been your experience on this last part to ensure that all those ideas and that energy and those findings coming from youth at the end of the day ended up contributing long term in the actual investments that the city is doing?
Yeah, I love your question, Raquel, and I would love to, if we're short on time, we can discuss bilaterally as well. But so from the get-go, and because we come from infrastructure planning as well, so we know that in order for something to happen, the government needs to open its doors. We need the key. So we did various things. So the first thing we did is that in those cities that we are implementing, we actually don't go to the government and say, please implement our program, but we'd rather open a call for cities, and the city has to apply for us to go there. So it is the city that already from the get-go sends a letter signed by the mayor that they are interested in us implementing in their city. So that's the first thing. We get the buy-in from the get-go. They are interested. Then we hold several interviews with the government. And one of our partners, that it's local, they are tasked with having a memorandum of understanding with a specific government agency, at least one, but it can be many. The more, the merrier sometimes, and the better because of many things like resources and all of that, but at least one. We also need focal points, specific focal points in the city, so that we actually talk to someone and are not paths from one person to another. So this ensures that we have the government's interest. And then how do we get the initiatives to be sustainable and to be long term? So like most of our innovation, let's say streams, and I'll be brief because I know we're coming at the end of the call. One of those streams has to be linked to a government priority. So let's say that one of the safety issues is the environment, water management, which actually was a common safety issue identified by young people and by the government in one of our cities. And then the government can put forward a project that they are already thinking about. And if the young people want to innovate towards it, that ensures that the government or that the project is already part of their agenda for that year or the next year. So it doesn't require like a huge effort to, okay, let's take on this initiative. It's already there. It's just shifting the interest to our program, but it's already there, the open doors. But happy to discuss more, Raquel.
And I'm happy to facilitate that introduction, Raquel and Lorena. I think it's a great discussion between you both, and it makes total sense where, of course, yours is the lead for the road safety field when it comes to youth involvement and all the different various tools and assemblies that they have, Lorena. So that'll be really cool. We are running out of time, so I'll just take a moment to talk about next steps. I will probably arrange one more COP session for early November. We're still mulling whether that would be on the NGO Alliance. I don't think Chica is here and their accountability toolkit, or whether it's on FIA mobility with our FIA clubs, or indeed perhaps even Bike Bus World. So watch this space. I'll inform more as we confirm that. But if there's no other questions, please thank Lorena Zemp from GIB for the amazing session and very, very enlightening. And for those that want to know a bit more about their initiatives, I will gladly introduce you those. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sunny. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you.